Good morning. We're so excited that the technology worked, and Pete Vargas and I are here this morning to talk to you about stages. Pete, I am excited that you and I get to play together. First and foremost, we've been friends for a few years now. We have not only been deeply invested in each other's movements that we've been, forging on the planet and helping entrepreneurs get on stages and spread their message, but we've also gone through the growing pains of growing a business and hiring people and doing everything that an entrepreneur needs to do to keep up with the speed. I remember at one point saying to you, your company was growing so fast because so many people want to get on stages. And you were like, wow, like, do I slow the growth down or do I, just go for it? And that's a risky moment. Do you know what I mean? And it's a risky moment. Like, do I go when I feel unprepared, which I think people feel when they go to get on a stage sometimes? Do I keep going or do I pull back? So I just love your heart and I love your humility, and I can't wait to see what we chat about today.
Yeah, I'm glad you took it. Like, nothing's out, here's what I'd say is nothing's off the table. So like, let's take it whatever direction the flow goes or the sense of in that our spirits have. But that's, that's one of those big decisions for people in companies. Like for many people, they might be like, but Pete, I'm not growing that fast, but are you growing where it's time to make your first hire? Because that's scary. I remember my first hire, like it was scary, just as scary as, up here. So there's not a difference. So anybody out there that doesn't have a team, those are decisions you need to make. And I think I was really encouraged because I remember the conversation. I was right out here on my deck and I remember it. And you're like, no, you grow, but you do it with wisdom. Like you pay attention to the numbers. You don't go overspend. You watch things and you do it with wisdom. Like you do it with responsibility. You do it with stewardship. But so it's not like, don't like still pay attention, but there is some equations in which you can follow around growth. Like people have done it before us. And so for anybody out there that's still trying to do every little task on your own and every little thing on your own, like I just, Shannon, I know you've taught your folks this, but it's kind of like, what's the value of an hour? Like, what can you bring to the company in an hour if you're focused on the genius? And I know what I've defined that to be. Back in the day, it was $100. And now it's probably like, because I was thinking too small. Like I'm talking about 4 or 5 years ago. And now I know if it's not realistically worth about $5,000 to $7,000 an hour. Like that's how I think. Like $7,000 an hour. I want somebody else doing it. And so I remember that conversation.
Yeah, it was a big conversation. And I wanted to bring it up because I just wanted to share with the entrepreneurs, as you're growing, we're going to talk about stages. We're going to talk about Pete's brilliance and even the fact that most of the people that you see, I shouldn't say most, but a huge amount of the people you see on the stages now at this point have touched Pete or Pete's company at some point, and they've been instrumental in it. But this piece about just having the courage, I got to speak, I thought I was speaking at a church function last night, and I got to speak for basically these college students in an entrepreneur program. And it was really cool because like somebody asked me the question, like, what do you do with confidence? And this is all leading into stages, you guys. Cause I remember being a wallflower, being scared to speak on stages, and meanwhile I've got, I was just on TV the other day. Now I'm going to be on another top motivator, documentary, kind of like the movie The Secret, but not, next week. And there's just, you're constantly tagged with things that you get nervous about. Like, Pete, I'm sure you were probably a little nervous about getting on the 10X stage at one point, so there's like, I don't think that those fears ever go away. But one of the college kids said to me, what do you do about courage? And I'm like, if that's the goal, throw it out. Like, because before courage comes, not courage, confidence, he said. I said, throw out confidence because before confidence comes courage. And after you get the courage, you start to gain the confidence. Like, I don't think anybody should read any more books about confidence, So, okay, so let's jump into it. So I would love to, and you guys are welcome to ask any questions. Feel free to ask on the thread any questions that you want. But I'd love to talk about a little bit about your background and what you're currently doing and seeing on stages, what works and what doesn't work. So they've got some.
You know, to what you just said, to set up my background, I think it's crazy to me that somebody would rather, statistics say that some people say in some places you're going to see that people would rather die than actually speak and communicate.
Wow.
And I think that's wild. I think that's a trick of I think that's a trick of the enemy, the evil side, because it's with communication that we change people's lives. I mean, when we communicate, we have the opportunity to penetrate their hearts, penetrate their souls, and change their lives. It's wild to me that somebody would rather be in the casket than be the one giving the eulogy on the stage. To be the one in the casket than to give the eulogy on the stage. Like, think about that for a second. That means, like, you would rather be the one that passed away than the one talking about that person. And so here's what I want everybody to know, like, just to get this courage, like Shanda said, because Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors in the world, said he was afraid of communicating. He was afraid of speaking. He was really afraid. So he went to a class and he quit because he was so afraid. Like, it made him nervous and it made him anxious. And then he was like, man, if I'm going to grow my company like I want to grow, I have to become a great communicator. And I got to step up into this and be courageous about this. So Shanda, he went to the class again and he finished it. And out of that class, he came out and he quoted, and I quote, if you want to increase the value of your business by 50%, like, this is the sage of Omaha, like one of the greatest investors. He doesn't get a 50% return annually. He said, you've got to become a great communicator. And so I just think that's important. And that's not for the stage. That's for a sales call. That's for a networking meeting. That's for anything that you do. You want to become a good communicator. And so, my background was a guy who was a youth pastor that loved bringing good communicators in. And I brought him in to speak to my kids. And the common theme amongst almost all of them, like 90% of them, is they felt like the best kept secret, because I didn't bring in a lot of famous people. I brought in a few famous people, but ironically, the famous people were never the greatest hits I would actually have my parents and my kids rate the speakers. The famous people were never the greatest speakers because they didn't practice this craft, or they kind of did it out of whatever. It was the people who were the best kept secrets that my parents and kids are like, who are you bringing in? They were always the ones that were like, oh my gosh, like, unbelievable. And so I loved that because nobody knew who they were. I found them. I was like the diamond in the rough, and they inspired my kids. They changed my kids' lives. And I got a phone call from one of my mentors, Bob Huffaker, who was a pastor in Ohio. And he said, Pete, his grandkids were in my youth group. And so he goes, Pete, you've got to bring in Daryl Scott. And I said, who? And he goes, Daryl Scott, I know you don't know him. Nobody knows him, but he's the best kept secret. I was like, oh, I love best kept secrets. Like, I love that. And I brought him in, Shanda, as you know. His daughter was the first girl killed at Columbine. She died for her faith. She actually died for her faith that day. The two gunmen shot her from a distance. They came up to her. They grabbed her hair. They put the gun to her head, and they said, do you still believe in your God? And she said, I do. And they shot her and took her life that day. And the boy sitting next to her, when he came out of a coma, it was the very first thing that he told his mom. He's like, did Rachel make it? And his mom said, no, son. And he said, Mom, they asked her if she believed in her faith that day. And she said, I do. And so you just think about taking a stand. You think about courage, this theme of courage when maybe her life would have been spared. Who knows? But courage in the hardest moment in your life, like, crazy to think about that. So she left her family with 6 diaries and a paper called My Ethics, My Codes of Life. And the paper talked about starting a chain reaction of kindness that would ripple around the world. She said, I have this theory that if one person will go out of the way to show compassion and kindness, that it'll change the world. And then her paper says, this isn't theory to me. This is how I do this every single day in my life. And so her dad wanted to carry that message out because he thought if I could take that message into schools, I could change the culture with this simple message of compassion.
Yeah, it's powerful.
So he came in and he shared that. I'm like, Bob, like, thank you. This guy was like the greatest hit. Why does nobody know about him? And you know the story, Shanda. My dad heard him. And my dad, what I don't normally share that I've been sharing a little bit more recently, just because it's healing for me, is Daryl spoke to the parents in my community. So he spoke to the kids by day and the parents at night. And he said on April 20th, I had no idea that was going to be the last day that I ever saw my daughter. And he said, parents, you don't know how long you have with your kids, your spouses on this earth. I want you to go tell them you love them. And he said, for some of you, I want you to go ask them for forgiveness because you know there's something you need to ask them for forgiveness for. And he said, forgiveness is one of the hardest things in the world to do, but it's one of the most freeing. He said, forgiving those 2 boys that took my daughter's life was absolutely one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life. But it was the most freeing thing that I've ever done in my life too. He goes, I was free. He goes, where a lot of parents still to this day aren't free from Columbine because they're still so upset and mad and haven't forgiven those boys. Our family is free. There's something really valuable in that for everybody that's listening today. Like maybe somebody just comes to mind that you've got to get some freedom with, like you've really got to forgive, or maybe you need to ask for forgiveness today. But like when I exercise gratitude and when I exercise forgiveness, there is this like an awakening. There's like this opening. There's like this freedom that comes with that. It's amazing. But I saw my dad's countenance change when he said that. And it prompted my dad to write me a letter, and he asked me for forgiveness for the abusive dad that he was growing up to me. And that was really the day when I said, okay, I'm committed to this. Like whatever just happened on that stage, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know. It's not like consciously, like just in here, it's not, it's like, wow, if somebody on a stage can do that in an hour, shoot, I want to be a part of helping more people do that in an hour or 15 minutes.
And let me bring this to everybody's awareness. Like right now, if you just heard Pete say what he said, there's like a closing of space. There's like there's like a bond that gets created because like there's people that have never heard of you before watching right now and will watch today, and there's people who know you, but the truth is that like it's irrelevant if you're a known name or not, because when you get up and you know how to like articulate, communicate any story that has been meaningful in your life. I mean, like people go to storytelling workshops, but the truth is it's like to learn, like you and I hang out and we just talk like this on a regular basis. Like we talk in stories on a regular basis. And it's always funny to me when I hear somebody say, well, get to the point of the content. The content's like 2 or 3 bullets and the content's done like in 2 seconds. The real truth is that the context of communicating a story and being able to speak, whether you are a New York Times bestselling author or you're somebody just getting started, the stage and communication is really the equalizer, because nobody cares about what you've done in the past. All they care about is what you're communicating in the moment. And if it's articulated in a way that is not all about you and is actually all about the situation that happened and the points that were just so life-changing, and you know how to talk from that place. It's a generous state, right? It's a generous state of being when you can speak about a story around the points that are just so relevant. Then what happens is an audience is captivated in that. Your parents are captivated in that. Your kids are captivated in that. And then even like things that would drive you nuts about, let's say, your parents. Lots of people have a challenge with parents, right? It's like, imagine if you didn't have those communication barriers, because it doesn't matter who your parents are, the way you communicate is in such a way that you lead the conversation that people are captivated. Because I think it's a powerful conversation to realize versus just listening to this live. And we're going to talk about more stages, but it's like people often think it's just about the mechanism of a formula to be able to get there. It's that the communication piece, I think, is critical. You know what I mean? It's critical.
So great. Go. Yeah,
Yeah.
because listen, you just said it, Shanda. Like there is a lot of study. Like, so we think about our country, America. America was number one in the world in academic achievement in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And that was when the focus of the academic world was the heart, like moral heart focused. So you'd read a book, check this out. And I love this. It's kind of geeky, but you'd read a book and it would say, Johnny had 12 marbles. He dropped 9 on the floor. Susie helped him pick them up. Johnny had 9 marbles that he dropped on the floor. Susie picked up 4 of them. How many did Johnny pick up? So in the moment of the teaching, it's teaching like this character focused, and it's actually grabbing the heart of the kid who's reading the book of learning math. What the focus of the academic achievement system was the heart of the kid. And what Daryl used to tell me, and he would show me the data on it, he's like, when we focused on a person's heart, their minds were open to listen. But as soon as we started going to the mind, all of a sudden they didn't want to listen. When we speak to the head, it's like, no, shut down, leave me alone. And it's like my son upstairs, Keaton, go clean your room, speaking to his mind. My dad, Pete, from his parents, you've got to make things right with your son. His siblings, you've got to make things right with your son. Daryl, hey, you don't have a lot of time on this earth with your kids. Just, when I lost my daughter, I wished I could have said some things that I wasn't able to say. Like now all of a sudden it's opening up my dad's heart. So his guard is down, like his guard is down and his mind is open. That's the power of story. It penetrates somebody's hearts to connect to Shanda and say, man, I want to lean in. Like think about everybody watching right now. The reason you love Shanda, because she grabbed your heart right away. Yes, she's brilliant. Yes, she's genius. Yes, she can talk about list building and all of the, how to build a business and how to grow a team. But like, listen, she connected with your heart. And then you're like, I trust her. I connect with her. She's been where I've been. I'm putting my guard down and now I want to learn from her. And when you have that mindset, all of a sudden it's like a sponge. We want to create their minds to be a sponge. And that's why storytelling and connecting is so critical, Shanda.
Well, and I'm gonna ask a question that somebody put in the post. It reminds me of this though. Often what stresses us out when we're going to speak or do anything, whether it's on a webinar or live or a stage, like a physical stage, is our intellect. We're afraid that we're not going to be smart enough. And let's just take it down to layman's terms. You're afraid you're not going to be good enough somewhere. And when the stage is getting bigger or the opportunity keeps getting bigger, because it's all relative to whatever step you're in, you still drop back into this. And this is just not the place to play at. It really is here. So there's a question from Michelle. She said, I would love to know how to source speaking engagements. Where do you start sourcing the places to begin? I know you're doing something tomorrow. Is it tomorrow today with planners?
It's tomorrow. Yeah, it's tomorrow. So I'll answer that, but I'll actually just play matchmaker to that. And I think Leslie's in the chat too. So first off, when we want people to speak, we want them to speak in front of, we call them dream stages. Dream stages are where the people who could potentially work with you are sitting in the crowd and you go serve them and you provide value to them. So Daryl, the guy I was talking about, his dream stage, he thought he knew his dream stage, Shanda. He's like, oh yeah, I want to go speak to parents and teachers. I mean, parents and students. But parents and students aren't the decision makers to bring programs into the schools. And he was like, oh. So he's like, so who should I speak to? I said, administrators, superintendents, principals. And as soon as we got him that first administrator conference of 400 people, 75 of them brought him back into the school, which 5 times his revenues from the last 12 months from one stage. That's a dream stage. It's that. So first, before you say, I want to go source, you got to select the right stages to be on. A lot of people select the wrong ones. So that's the first thing, is you want to do that. And then the second thing, tomorrow we'll give you that. We have actually a guide that we're giving out to everybody tomorrow. It has thousands of stages in it by every niche and industry. But tomorrow, what I'm doing is I'm actually speaking to 30 people who control thousands of stages. They control physical stages, because there's 8 physical stages, and they control digital stages. There's digital stages of different types of stages that you can be on. And tomorrow, my goal is there was a quote in a movie called The Wall Street that I used to watch back in the day. And Michael Douglas said, if you're not on the inside, you're on the outside. And so my goal tomorrow of interviewing all of these meeting planners, what we call them, is to get on the insides of their minds and say, what is it that you look for in a speaker, and what is it that takes to win your stage? And by the way, all of them are talking tomorrow about not big name speakers, best kept secrets. Like they will one after another say, we bring in best kept secrets, but they've got to do these things. So we're doing that tomorrow, Shanda. And throughout the process, we're giving away the opportunity for about 24, 25 stages. And tomorrow we're actually going to award 4 stages live on the live stream. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So cool. So what I'm curious, what gave you the idea to do a live like that?
Yeah. So it was inspiration. Like it really was, because I've spoken to them on the phone. So the very first stage I booked, and I shared this last night with and it was this aha for Dean last night, your good friend Dean, and I know he's been a mentor to both of us. He's like, how do you take he goes, how do you take a best kept secret and actually get them on? And I said, well, I learned that the hard way. I said, I started calling. So Daryl moves me. I start picking up the phone. I call Daryl and I say, I want to get your message out there to everybody. He goes, how? I go, let's put you on dream stages. He's like, will you do it for me? I'm like, well, I'm a youth pastor. I'll figure it out. So I kind of hustled on the side, like most entrepreneurs do sometime in their journey. And I started calling people. And the problem was I was talking about the person. I want everybody to hear this. I was like, hey, can we bring Daryl Scott to your conference? And they're like, who? And I made about 30, 40, 50 calls. I don't remember. And I just kept taking that angle and everybody was saying no. And then I shifted it. And my communication became, hey, there's this girl who was killed at Columbine. Her parents started this organization, and the programs and the talks that they give revolve around the framework on what it takes to change the culture of your schools, which will then end suicides, teen bullying, and so many other things, school shootings. And so now I'm addressing the problem. And when I shifted it from the person to the problem, because the only person who can talk about the person is someone who's extremely well known, a president, a New York Times bestselling author. So as soon as I made the shift to talking about the problem they can solve, people started saying yes all the time. They didn't care that they didn't know the name, because they knew that you could solve a problem for them. And so, Shanda, for about 15 years, you know this, your crowd doesn't. I've spoken on the phone with meeting planners for 10,000 plus hours, and I just see that so many people are trying to figure out how to get on somebody's podcast or somebody's stage. And so a couple of years ago, we started doing this one time a year, and it was a wild hit. And so the first year, I just gave them the insights. The second year, last year, a couple of meeting planners gave away a few stages and live while we were on there, including one on a stage of 30,000 people. And so this year we just said, let's up it. Let's play like major matchmaker. Let's not just make it about insight. Let's make it about giving away stages. And then the last thing that we did, and this part of it's done, and you'll appreciate this, the deadline for this was Friday, but we told people we want to hear your stories. We don't want you to be the best kept secret anymore. And so 675 people submitted their 3-minute story. Pat Quinn coached them all of them,
man.
with comments. He's a savant with comments. The comments were like, oh my gosh, not surface level at all. And tomorrow we're going to award the 2 to 3 most powerful stories that Pat saw in this whole thing. And tomorrow they're going to get awarded a workshop tomorrow, but they're going to get awarded it in front of all of these meeting planners. So it's powerful because you'll get to see somebody who stepped out of their comfort zone to share their story. Most of these people
can I jump in here for
the stories were scared. Yeah.
So I think, first of all, the point in me asking that question is just, I'm watching you keep getting better, and you've put in countless hours. Like I even look at entrepreneurs, they're like, I talked to 50 people and nobody closed. It's not working. And I'm like, so if you're still working through that and you're still working through your grit, like, you could actually have more grit, then, you know, jumping on like stuff that you're doing, Pete, I think is really important, which is why like we moved everything yesterday to have you jump on and for us to chat for everyone, because it's like you've put in, I've watched you up your grit. You know what I mean? Like you've watched me up my grit. And it's like, I'm a firm believer in linking arms with people who are succeeding and just really have the endurance. It's one thing to start, but have the endurance to go all the way. And sometimes you're still learning your endurance. Sometimes you're still in a situation where it's like you start things, you haven't finished them all the way, or that you're just struggling in it and you just need that heavenly moment for somebody to come in and mentor you and lift you up. I believe that moment is right here for people who have a dream and desire to, first of all, any stages. And it's not just physical. Like he said, there's podcasts, there's webinars, there's digital, there's live, there's work. I mean, we do 65 events a year inside of Heartcore alone, both workshops, free events, selling events, paid events. Like there's just, masterminds. Next week we have 2 alone. Like next week, it's like, and they're amazing because the bond, the connection that you get, people who don't come to their masterminds don't get the same return on investment out of a program. People who are still afraid to like get on their webinar because they failed. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you're not communicating the things that really light you up. You're still about the content. You're still up here. You're about the content versus about solving the problem. And it just takes a small tweak. That small tweak might have been for you watching this right now. Like you might have had an aha already watching this, where maybe you have a webinar today, or you're thinking about doing one, or you got a stage coming up. But like, what would it be like if you embraced yourself? Like I embrace myself and Pete. Pete embraces himself and me. And we have a competitive advantage because we are in each other's heads, helping each other. So I'm going to suggest that if this is a dream and a desire, you don't just want to be good, you want to be extraordinary, right? You want to be one of the best. You have a desire to be one of the best. You just need some pieces to come together. I'm going to suggest that they join. So it's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow, and it's every 15 minutes from 3 p.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern, and it's on there. And Shands is actually going to give away one of her lives, which is awesome. Shands and I mean, people like Pat Flynn and John Lee Dumas and are some of the digital stages that are being given away, and a TEDx talk. But the goal of it is to just really give you the let me give you the confidence so that you can just walk into the courage. I'll give you the confidence by helping you I'll get inside their minds for you. And so it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a great day. And it's all day long for sure. Yeah.
I just want to ask one more question and then we'll wrap up for everyone. And I think this is where your expertise starts to come in. And this is invaluable because now you've got wisdom and creativity coming together. A woman asked, how can I combine getting speaking engagements to empower moms to become mompreneurs and thrive at the same time as I'm helping unplanned pregnancies of broken emotional and economically? So with that being said, she's got these 2 dynamics. She wants to help moms become mompreneurs, but she's also dealing with an audience of unplanned pregnancies and broken emotionally. So it sounds like she's kind of got 2 audiences going on. What would you recommend with what you do and your expertise? What a next step might be for her?
Yeah, so I think of somebody, and I'm trying to come to mind here, but I think of somebody like a Houston Craft who wanted to make a big difference in a very similar way, and he on his case, he was tired of being a road warrior, which is meaning living on the road. He had just gotten married. He was on the road a lot of days. And he was like, man, I want to have a deeper impact. I don't want to compromise anything. I want to have a deeper impact, but I don't want to travel so much. And the problem that Houston had in his business is what I think this young lady's talking about. Is she's like, how did she say it? She said, but I want to thrive. And so my question to you, Anna Lillian, is there some type of product or service you have right now for mompreneurs and unplanned pregnancies of broken emotional economics? Do you have anything right now? So that's my first question, because I don't know the answer to that because I can't tell. The second thing is trying to focus on 2 things at one thing. You're probably not going to get one really, really good. It's kind of like, so let me give you an example. when we came out 4 years ago, I was passionate about a couple of things. I was passionate about stages, but I was really passionate about my wife and I's adoption journey and our struggle with having kids. Really passionate about both of them. Really, really passionate. And I thought, and I literally heard from God, like, I will bring that one day. But this is the thing that's going to allow you to not only make a deep impact out of the gates, but also establish the revenues that you could do this free for the rest of your life if you want to. You could encourage parents and people out there that are struggling through different things in their life to be able to do this as a passion project. Okay. So I doubled down on this. I hustled, grit, got better, up my game, have become a better person, have learned.
Meaning you doubled down
What's
on
that?
your vision. You heard from God, like to supply the opportunity for your wife to really give and be in that stage. So you doubled down on one of your passions versus two at the moment to really build out the company around helping people with stages.
Yep. And now because of doubling down for the last 3.5 years, the door has now opened for us to launch this. And the beautiful thing, maybe one day God's going to call us to monetize this. However, right now, Kim and I get to go just do this for a year for free. We get to start a podcast. She gets to begin to blog. Shanda and many others are going to hear her story. And it's cool because she has we don't have to rely on any money over here. So my advice to you, Anna Lillian, is which one of these do you feel like you should double down? Not that you're saying no to the other one, but which one are you going to double down on? And the one that I believe that you feel the strongest is where it can bring in some revenues, income, so that you can, as you say, use the word thrive. And what we believe is that you need to create one product or service. For me, out of the gates, it was coaching, one-on-one coaching, because we needed this established. But you need to create something around that, double down on one, go all in, and then watch how the door will open for this other one too. So that would be my advice to her, Shanda, because what happens, what happens is people get overwhelmed and then they take no action at all. And this week I got to meet, Shannon and I were at an amazing mastermind, and I got to meet a guy who I've showed his video at my live events for the last 3 years. His name is Prince E. And Prince E has a video called The Graveyard.
I actually just did a post about Prince
on
Instagram. That's so funny. I didn't realize he impacted you so much too. Love him.
Yeah, so I'm going to show this here in just a second. But Prince, here's what I fight for, and I'll kind of close with this. But at the end, we had our very first live event 4 years ago, and I said, team, find a video that's powerful, that can reinforce that people walk out of this room and actually take action, and don't give up on the message and dream they have. Yeah. And so we started this letter writing activity at the end of our very first live event, where people had to commit by writing their letter to themselves, but not before they saw Prince E's message. And Prince E's message, it's the graveyard. Go watch it. He basically said the wealthiest place in the world is the graveyard. It's messages unheard, inventions not created, dreams not walked out. And he said, unfortunately, most people die at 25, but they're not buried till they're 75. And he said which means most people give up on those dreams at a very early age, and they just kind of dead to it already. And so what I would do is I'd have people commit to writing their message. And then 6 months later, I would send it to them, Shanda, as a reminder to say, are you walking this out? It's like a youth group activity it's like the Pastor Pete coming out in me. But I wanted them to be reminded of their message. And so I did that all of our live events, 5 consecutive times. And then this last time, it became more real to me than ever before, because we just did it and we sent the letters out. And for the first time ever, I got this one back right here. And you can see the words on it right there, Shanda. It actually says the word deceased.
Oh.
And so a couple of weeks ago, I actually opened this up, and inside is this lady's message. It's her message that she wrote before she left my live event. And I was battling, like, do I open it? Do I not? And I didn't the first 2 times, but the third time I felt God say, read it. And as I read it, it brought Prince E's video to life for me in a really big way. And all I could think about is, man, God, I hope those 6 months that she actually did that, because that is his message is so powerful. And so whether it be for Anna Lillian or anybody on here, like, you've got a message for the world. Don't let the self-talk, like, my story's not powerful, my message isn't powerful, who wants to hear me, I'm afraid. Do not let that prevent you from sharing it. And ultimately, like what Prince E says, going to the graveyard with it. And so that's what I really want to just like drive home today, Shanda, is that piece for everybody watching.
That's so good. I think we're complete. I mean, like, on that, I just think people, I mean, first and foremost, get to come to tomorrow's live with you guys, and if that's what they want and they want to create that. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's nothing more powerful than that. I can't even imagine getting that letter back. So thank you for sharing that, because that will impact my day, and I'm sure many other people who are watching right now. Any final last words?
Yeah. No, I just super grateful for you, your friendship, love you. And that, you guys, y'all are an amazing community out there. Like I would eat up everything Shanda says. Like, oh, well, let me back up. I've eaten up everything Shanda says to me. So make sure, like, she is one of those few people who deeply, deeply, deeply care about her people, her friends, her community, her family, like deeply, like just an amazing person. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, you guys, this is a wrap on Coffee with Shanda and Pete. And we're both sending you so much love and encouragement and courage to take the action that you need. So we'll talk to you soon. We'll see you on the stages, see you on digital marketing, see you on the lives. Bye.